Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Shruti Mishra and with me are Arundhati Ramanan and Ritu Singh. These are the top headlines from the startup space. Google officials to meet IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav over delisting of apps. Sources say that the tech giant will clarify that they followed due procedure and gave the applications opportunities to comply before taking them down. Most of the apps that were taken down were reinstated after they complied with bill payments.
In a follow-up to the government's artificial intelligence advisory, MeitY Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar clarifies crucial aspects of it amid industry-wide concerns. Chandrasekhar said that the focus of the advisory is on untested AI platforms intended for deployment on the Indian internet. He added that public internet should not be used as a sandbox.
Government is likely to delay the rule mandating payments to small businesses within 45 days. Sources say the Finance Ministry is likely to defer the implementation to the 1st of April 2025, delaying the rollout by a year after representations by several industry bodies.
Kiddo International, a UK-headquartered preschool chain, acquires Emilio Early Education. The acquisition follows a $7.5 million fundraise led by Tata's Capital in Kiddo.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh launches Aditi scheme with a corpus of 750 crore rupees for startups. The scheme will focus on innovations in critical and strategic defence technologies, from startups through grants of up to 25 crore rupees for research, development and innovation in defence technology.
Apple fined 1.8 billion euros by European Union regulators for thwarting competition among music streaming rivals. Regulators said Apple illegally used its App Store dominance to box out rivals.
Well, those were the headlines we were tracking from the startup world. The weekend was all about Google versus Indian startups. The tech giant on Saturday delisted apps from 10 Indian developers over billing row. However, the government's stance is clear. Delisting cannot be permitted. Google has already restored apps on its Play Store. But what does Google's terms mean for Indian developers? What is the long-term solution the ecosystem is hoping for? To discuss this and more, joining me now are the founders of some of the apps that were delisted. I'm now joined by founders of some of the apps, again, that were delisted, like Lalchan Bisu of Kuku FM, Ravi Mittal of Quack Quack, and Vinay Singhal of Stage. Also with me is my colleague Arundhati. Gentlemen, welcome to Startup Street. Let me start with you, Vinay. IT and Telecom Minister Ashwini Vaishnav held a meeting a few hours ago with Google's delisted app founders. You were in the meeting, Vinay. What has been the outcome? What was discussed? And I believe Stage has been restored on the consumption model. I believe Vinay is disconnected. Ravi, let me put across the same question to you. The meeting happened a couple of hours ago. What was the outcome? And again, you've also been listed back. You've been restored. The app has been restored on the consumption model. What has been the outcome of the meeting?
I was unfortunately not part of the meeting. I think Vinay can tell you more about that. But we are back on the App Store because Google has put a gun to our head. And we had to agree to their terms because being on the App Store is critical for our business. So yes, we had to agree to their terms. And if someone is claiming, or if Google is claiming that they have done this after the government's order or something, I think that is a wrong presumption. We are back because we had to bow down and accept Google's terms at the moment.
All right. Lal, let me come to you then. You have called Google evil. Kuku FM was delisted in 2019 as well. So what kind of drop in registrations have you seen since the delisting? And how has this hurt business in a way? Lal, you're on mute, so it would be great if you could unmute the button, press the unmute button.
Sorry.
Yeah, great.
Yes. So Google control everything in our internet system. So they have like Android, like in India, 97% people are using Android today. And Google have Play Store. They are not allowing other Play Store to distribute the app. So now they have everything in their control. Now they are allowing any app to be there or not to be there. It is their decision. So like recently what happened, like they are pushing that if you are distributing our app through Play Store, now you have to pay this 15% to 30% of your revenue to the Google. And that's like so dangerous for Indian startup ecosystem that a lot of companies will die, because either you have to increase the price. If you are increasing the price, then a lot of Indians will not be able to afford, or you have to pay part of your revenue, so your unit economics will not make sense. So it is like, and it is only like Google is pushing because we don't have any other option. So a lot of startups have to like follow their terms or have to die. Like there is no other option.
Absolutely. And let me go across to Ravi. Similar question to you. What kind of impact has the delisting caused on the business?
See, on a daily basis, we used to get about 25,000 app downloads only on Android. 90% of our user base is on Android because we cater to very small cities and towns in India. And post delisting, in the last 4 days, we have seen about 80% of our revenue, which has dropped. And from daily registrations of about 18 to 20,000, it has dropped down to merely 500 to 600 registrations per day. So definitely, it's a huge impact on how we run a business.
Sure. Picking up from what Lal was just mentioning, and this question is for you, Lal. In India, Google allows app developers to sell in-app content only on the precondition that its own payment system, GBPS, is integrated as a payment option within their apps. Now, this is in stark contrast with its position in the 30 countries that are part of the European Economic Area and the United Kingdom. So, of course, apart from being restored, what is a long-term ask? How do you plan to challenge this anti-competitive practice?
At the end, this is payment gateway. Like you have app, and now if you are making revenue, you have to put some payment gateway on your app to charge users. What Google is doing, Google is forcing that you don't use any other payment gateway. You have to use Google Play billing, and I will take 15 to 20% charge. And now after pushing like CCI, they allowed UCB. UCB is user choice billing system, where we can use other payment gateway, but we have to again like pay 15 to 30% to the Google. So like till 2020, it was a like kind of free market, and we can use any payment gateway, and like the charges was around like 0.5 to 2%. Now Google is pushing to use their payment gateway and pay them like around 15%. That is not unacceptable. That how someone can take like and push that on to use only one payment gateway.
Right. Vinay, you've managed to lock back in. So if I can bring you into the conversation, can you tell us how can the government protect the interests of these Indian startups? What is the long-term solution that you're hoping for?
Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you. I think what we are looking for is the immediate short-term relief that we need is business continuity. All of us are out of the Play Store. Our businesses are on hold completely since last 4 days. And so we need our apps to be restored back. We need Google to essentially restore the status quo as it was on Friday morning. And all of us need to be back on the App Store. In the long term, we are really hoping for the government to bring the legislation to, stop any large monopoly players to essentially, use their monopoly to try and extort money in a way where they can charge up to 30%, of a business's revenue. This 30% basically means that our businesses can die any second, and if you're not restored back on the Play Store, our businesses will actually die within the next couple of weeks. So the immediate ask that we had from the government was to get in and help us restore the status quo and get us relisted back on the Play Store.
Vinay, I was asking you and then you got logged off. You were part of the meeting. IT and Telecom Minister Ashwini Vaishnav held a meeting a few hours ago with the founders of the delisted apps. What has been the outcome of the meeting, and what demands will be met?
I think the government has been very responsive and very supportive on the entire matter. Frankly, it was so heartening to see the IT minister coming on a weekend, giving a statement and saying that the Indian startups will be protected no matter what. It was very reassuring and it kind of gave us a lot of confidence. Today also, he gave us a lot of ample amount of time. He heard the entire matter in detail, and he was very thorough and understanding of the issue, I think. And what he has said is that let us review everything that you told us, all the facts that you told us. We will go back to Google after understanding the matter in detail and then see what best we can do. He assured that government will do everything possible to basically support the Indian startup ecosystem.
So the government saying that they will do anything to support the startup ecosystem. But Ravi, if I could bring you back into the conversation, your views on how the big techs need to be restrained and controlled. Sanjeev Bikhchandani had said that we need an app for Bharat. PhonePe just launched its Indus app. Would you be willing to leave Google Play Store and perhaps join PhonePe?
See, reinventing the wheel here is not the solution. If there is an East India company, we don't build another East India company. We fight it, and we fight for the justice. And that is what we need here. The short-term solution is that the apps get restored. The mid-term and the long-term solution is we have regulations and rules in place so that these monopolies don't get a chance to crumple startups and even establish businesses. If you see, there are many IPO companies who are, running on an app model. And the moment Google or Apple intervene and they take down these applications, the whole economies can come to standstill. So regulation is probably the only long-term answer to the solution.
I get that. And let me now ask Lal and Vinay, both of you all as well, on the same question. How do we restrain these big tech, the big boys? And, like my colleague mentioned that, Sanjeev Bikhchandani said that there is a need for an app for Bharat. We've got PhonePe that recently launched Indus app. Similar question, would you be willing to leave Google Play Store and perhaps join PhonePe? Or what else needs to be done?
So first, I think, see, it's not about leaving one and going to the other, and we don't mind. The problem is that there is no, from the outside, it looks all great that we have a new app store, Indus App Store, etc. But do you know what is the process of downloading an Indus App Store? Google makes it almost impossible for you to have another, app downloaded on your phone, leave it, and if it's an app store, it just makes it even more impossible. You have to download an APK. The APK, Google shows 10 warnings before you can actually install that on your phone. And then even after that, when you install any app from that app store, there are still lots of security warnings that are shown. So like Ravi said, the idea is not just to sift from one app store to the other. The idea is that if someone controls 96% market share, they are a monopoly by definition.
Yes.
And so regulation needs to come in, and they need to be regulated, and they need to basically create the regulation needs to come in, and the authorities need to create a level playing field for everyone to be in the market.
Okay.
It's not just about apps on the Google Play. The problem is that Google does not even allow for any other app store to thrive for that matter. And Indus is going to find it really, really difficult to scale and be a real alternative to everybody else. So we need regulations, and we need to, fight against the big tech.
Okay, of course, we need regulations. And before we wrap up, I want to put across Google's blog that it posted on March 1st. And it said that Google's tiered pricing programs benefit Indian developers. Well, only 3% of developers in India sell digital goods and services and therefore need to pay a service fee. The vast majority of whom pay 15% or less is the lowest of any major global app store. The blog also highlighted that in India, less than 60 developers on Google Play are subject to fees above 15%. So if 15% is too high, Vinay, Lal, then what is right? What is the person that you're willing to pay?
Yeah, so this is very misleading statement actually. 3%. So what Google is doing now, they are playing divide and rule in the country. So first they are going after the digital products. So digital products are like who are selling content on the platform, like OTT platforms or entertainment platforms, or if there is any game kind of thing. So these are digital goods. So they are saying that now we are only charging these digital companies, or these are companies only 3%. They will go after then other companies. And actually on Google Play Store, it is always power law. Like they are going after the majority of the companies, and that is something that is like that this will hurt to the companies. And like behind the scene, they are providing equally infra to all the apps. Like we are using Play Store to list the app. All the other apps like Amazon, Zomato, Swiggy, everyone is using the same infra. We are also, digital good companies are also using the same infra. But they are charging that we are only putting charge on the digital goods company. That is very misleading statement from Google.
Bisu is saying here, first of all, what is the difference between those 3% and 97%, right? Why only those 3% companies will pay a 30% or a 15% versus those 90% won't? How is Amazon using Google Play Store infrastructure less versus a Stage or a Cuckoo or a Quack? that we will pay a 15% fee on our revenue, but Amazon won't, Uber won't, Spotify won't, and whatnot, right? Second question, if then Google comes back and says that we are providing you a payment gateway service, and so we are charging you a payment gateway fee here. Let me tell you, the current payment gateway fee that we pay is 0.25%. The maximum that any player pays out there is 2% in India. No payment gateway charges you more than 2% on your transactions. And Google comes back and says that 15% is lowest by any standard in any versus any app store in the world, because there are only 2 app stores which are there, which basically control almost the 100% market share in the world, Apple and Google, and both of them essentially have followed each other's policy, and both of them are charging 30%. So it's misleading in many ways that they're charging this, and then they're claiming that 15% is less by any standard. It's 0.25% against 15% and 30% if you were to compare apple to apple.
Right. So, Vinay, you're saying that this is a very misleading statement to give. All right, Lal, Ravi, Vinay, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, but we're completely out of time, and thank you for decoding this for us.
Thank you.
Okay, we have to take a short break on that note, but up next, that Ministry of Electronics and IT clarifying the AI advisory is only applicable to large companies, not startups. But what does it mean for the larger ecosystem? We'll analyze that after this break.
Welcome back. You're still with us on Startup Street. The Ministry of Electronics, in the recent advisory on AI, mandates all intermediaries and platforms to seek government's explicit approval before deploying any AI models for users. Union Minister for State for IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, however, clarified on social media that the advisory was only for large platforms and not startups, and added that public internet should not be conflated with a sandbox insofar as unlawful content is concerned. Ashmit Kumar is here with more on the specifics of the advisory. Ashmit?
Well, importantly, a couple of aspects to bear in mind. One, the Minister of State for Electronics and IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, and Ashwini Vaishnav both have clarified in their own way. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, by way of a tweet where he says that this advisory is in the nature of an advice to the intermediaries. That's one. Second, in a conversation with Ashwini Vaishnav, he clarified that as far as this entire advisory is concerned, it is not binding, only has a guiding force. That's the first key clarification. Of course, all of this issue came to light in light of this advisory which issued a mandate, so to speak, the advisory required for intermediaries before releasing and deploying their AI models, LLM models. It said that they need to take permission from the government. The advisory provided that there should be no bias or discrimination. It also said that there should be a labeling mechanism whereby the users are informed that the results may not be entirely accurate. Now, this has been clarified in part by Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who says that this is applicable only to large intermediaries, not to startups. Also goes on to say this is only for models currently under development, and that this will act as an insurance policy that tomorrow at a future date the customers don't sue the company in question. This question was also raised with Ashwini Vaishnav. He clarified on his part as well that there is in fact a need for more accountability. He in fact pushed the ball in the direction of social media companies, that is something that needs to be pursued further, and of course clarified that this is not binding as of now. But clearly, with both the ministers speaking in one voice with respect to the urgency that's required to tackle the AI issue, there is some indication being given with respect to the direction that future legislation may take on AI regulation.
Absolutely, it will. Ashmit, thanks very much for bringing us up to speed with that story. But joining us now to help us further understand this are legal experts, S Nappinai, Supreme Court advocate and founder of Cybersathi, and Mishi Chaudhary, technology lawyer and founder of SFLC.in. Ladies, thank you very much for your time here on CNBC TV18. Ms. Nappinai, I'll start with you. What is the legal basis for an advisory which both the ministers are terming as an advisory of this kind? Under what law can this be imposed on intermediaries and platforms?
That is a million-dollar question I would also like an answer for. Because unfortunately, the advisory which has been mentioned in all media is not available in the public domain. At least I haven't been able to come across this. However, some of the people who are claiming that they have seen the advisory are mentioning that it has been issued under the Information Technology Act 2000 and the 2021 IT rules. The 2021 IT rules probably refers to the intermediary guidelines. So now the intermediary guidelines are predicated on this one provision under the IT Act, which is Section 79, which gives an exemption or a safe harbor to intermediaries subject to certain conditions. One of the conditions is that they'll comply with whatever guidelines the central government may issue. The presumption, therefore, when a parent act gives an exemption and says that the central government can put in certain guidelines, is that the guidelines will be limited to and will apply to the aspect of the basis for the exemption. And here the basis for the exemption is that the intermediary has not initiated a transmission, does not choose the receiver, does not choose the content, or does not have control over the content. So when we're talking about all this, to expand it to cover AI rules, I think is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah. Well, it is, because we don't really have clear rules on AI yet anywhere globally, leave alone India. But Ms. Chaudhary, the government clearly clarifying this is not applicable to startups. But, what is your understanding of these intermediaries and these platforms? What will be the large platforms? Are we only talking about the Googles and the Gemini AI models of the world? Or how will it not apply to the likes of Krutrim, say, in India? How do you distinguish between the two?
I think that's why the advisory should not have come with a clarification required by the minister through tweets. The few things which you are referring to, that it will only apply to large, significant social media intermediaries, tells us that startups are exempted. We do not know on what basis, because the example you gave, Ola's Krutrim itself, rates itself very low, in fact, or not low perhaps, but at least 7 out of 10 on terms of political neutrality. So why only the large companies are being subject to this and not the smaller ones? If the concern is interference with electoral process or deepfakes, etc., we do not know. The minister is also claiming this will be an insurance party. There is no legal basis that the government can become an underwriter or give any kind of insurance. If I, as a private party, tomorrow want to sue Google or Meta or any of the open AIs, So we do not know on what basis that actually is going to work. Third, if it is an advisory and it is legally non-binding, and I've seen it, and Nappinai is a dear friend, I'll send it to you, Nappinai, and you'll also be amused to see, because it does say there will be penal consequences under the IT Act. It also requires an action taken come status report to be filed within 15 days. I will say elections are coming right now. So obviously a legislation or an actual rules does not seem to be possible. This seems more like we have to address Gemini's problem, which we saw on February 23rd, the answers it created. All over the world, because I do work in the US, there are regulations coming, and EU is right now at the gold standard based on harms that can come. So regulation which should be light-handed and not interfere with an evolving technology, which is evolving at the pace AI is. I think that's what's required right now, not a rushed way where everybody has to figure out and scramble to understand what exactly is happening, who's subject to it, who's not, is not what addresses the issue entirely.
Okay. Ms. Nappinai, we just have 20 seconds to go. The minister saying that public internet should not be conflated with a sandbox, but, the answers you get on generative AI, for instance, that's used on various things, right? I mean, it depends on the training data, your prompt, the setting context, and so on. It's a private conversation. Can platforms really be held liable for this? In a few seconds, Ms. Nappinai.
Very, very quickly, all that I would have to say is, if you want to hold platforms liable, do so under Parliament enacted law or under a proper Parent Act which permits you to issue rules, regulations, advisories or guidelines which has a legal flavor. To do so by expanding existing law to such an extent that it will merely break may not be the right way. AI, and what I was intervening earlier on was, you have a regulatory framework under the European Union. You have the AI Act directive which has come out,